Greetings to my brothers and sisters from Micronesia. My name is Noai Dong, and I want to talk about the importance of fisheries for the Micronesian people. Fisheries is so important that we've used it for food and for recreation and for learning and for income. But now the fisheries resources are really declining in a pretty bad shape. From Palau to the west to RMI in the east, everywhere you go, fish is declining. Due to many issues, overfishing is one, but now we're faced with climate change, which is a pretty big threat and provides challenge to our way of life and the way we use our fisheries resources. But there are a lot we, the communities, can do to help alleviate some of those problems. Watch this video and learn something on how you can be part of the solution.
Across Micronesia and the Pacific, coral reef resources and fisheries have been declining in recent decades. As scientists, we've generally found this due to things like catching too many fish, catching fish that are too small and have not yet reproduced, damage to habitats like coral reefs, seagrass beds, and mangroves, pollution from land flowing into the sea, and illegal fishing by foreign boats. Now, the earth and seas are getting hotter with climate change, making things worse for our ocean. When waters get too hot, corals bleach or turn white, and eventually many die. Without live corals that provide homes for many of our reef fish, we will see their numbers decline. Even as the climate changes, there's a lot you can do to keep your corals healthy and your fisheries abundant so that there are plenty of fish to catch now and into the future. But what do fish and other marine resources need for their populations to be abundant? It's really very simple. They need to reproduce and they need healthy habitats. In my experience, cultures across the Pacific have traditional names for many of the top fishery species that define different life stages. Traditionally, fishermen knew at what stages to harvest these fishes so that the populations would remain healthy and sustainable. These days, many young fish are being captured to sell before they've had a chance to reproduce. For fish populations to grow, it's very important that we allow fish to stay alive until they become adults and reproduce. Some fish, like groupers and parrotfishes, live on reefs. Other fish, like rabbitfishes, live in seagrass beds. And other marine resources, like mud crabs, live in mangroves. The areas where fish and marine resources live are called their habitats. If habitats are healthy, they provide fish with food and homes and are better able to withstand the impacts of climate change. Since different fishes use different habitats, it's important that we keep all types of marine habitats healthy. Now, let's talk about what types of management actions you can take to ensure that fish are reproducing and populations remain healthy. Fisheries scientists and communities have found that one of the simplest ways to protect habitat and replenish stocks of fish is to develop no-take zones. In these zones, no fishing is allowed for a long time or even permanently. While this may seem like a big sacrifice for fishers, let's look at how no-take zones actually can help improve fishing through this example. This community noticed a decline in their fishery due to overfishing and habitat destruction. The community decided to establish a no-take zone that includes all of the important habitats: coral reefs, sandy areas, seagrass beds, and mangroves. Within a couple of years, the fish inside the no-take zone became larger, and some even moved outside into the fishing area. Fishers started to catch fish right outside of the no-take zone. Over more time, the fish populations inside the no-take zone grew even more, and some adult fish and eggs spilled over into the fishing area, where eventually they were caught. Keeping the no-take zone in place permanently will help this community maintain abundant fish populations into the future. Fishers around Micronesia and the Pacific find that the best fishing is on the boundary of no-take zones because they can catch fish that swim outside of these protected areas. To have the best results in improving fish populations, scientists recommend placing as much area as possible in no-take zones that includes all habitat types. At a minimum, we suggest placing 30% of your marine area into no-take zones. So, why are no-take zones so effective? One of the reasons they help fish populations to grow is because big, adult female fish make many more eggs than smaller adult female fish, and no-take zones let fish get very big. For example, a 13-inch jack produces 50,000 eggs in a year. How many eggs do you think a 26-inch jack will produce in a year? 100,000? 200,000? You might be surprised to learn that a 26-inch jack produces over 4,300,000 eggs in a year. This is 86 times more than a jack that is half its size. This means that bigger female fish are very important to ensuring the future of our fish populations. As we just learned, no-take zones are very important to help replenish fish stocks. But it's equally important to also manage areas outside of the no-take zone. This is because coral reef fish don't reproduce as quickly as other fish like tuna. So if areas outside no-take zones aren't managed and end up being heavily fished, or if habitat is destroyed, it can really damage your fish populations. To effectively manage fish across your entire marine area, fisheries scientists recommend doing the following. Protect reproducing fish. Many types of fish come together in large numbers at certain locations to reproduce and are very easy to overfish at this time. To help populations grow, communities can stop fishing in specific areas or during certain moon phases when they're reproducing. Take only medium-sized fish. Leave the biggest fish in the water because they reproduce the most. And don't take small fish that haven't had a chance to reproduce yet. But remember, different types of fish reproduce at different sizes. So work with elders or scientists to learn which fish reproduce at which size. Protect threatened and wide-ranging fish. These include bumphead parrotfish, Napoleon wrasse, large emperors, snappers, and giant trevallies. These fish grow slowly and can easily be overfished. They also need very large areas as far as 6 miles or more. Since very few no-take zones are this big, you need other rules that cover entire islands or countries to effectively manage these fish. For example, for several years now, it's been illegal to fish for Napoleon wrasse and bumphead parrotfish in Palau. Protect healthy habitat. Reduce or stop destructive practices that damage habitat such as dynamite fishing, coral mining, excessive clearing of mangroves, filling of mangroves, and land activities that cause sediment on the reef. Also, some fish called herbivores, like parrotfish and surgeonfish, help to keep coral reefs healthy. These fish help keep reefs clear of algae, providing a place for young corals to grow. So it is important that your rules protect these types of fish. Establishing management actions can be a sacrifice for local fishers in the beginning. However, no-take zones in combination with good management outside of these zones is the best way to improve fish populations and your catch. Let's review with this example. This community started out with no management and noticed their fisheries declining due to overfishing, cutting mangroves, harvesting sand, and killing coral. To improve their fishery, they decided on the following actions. They established a no-take zone that covered 30% of all important habitats in their marine area. This allowed fish inside to grow larger and spill over into nearby areas over time. They created a seasonal closure when groupers reproduce between April and August. Fishers can return in the area after the close season is over. They also created a partial take zone where it's illegal to take sea cucumbers and clams, which allows them to reproduce and populate other areas. However, fishing for other types of fish is allowed in this area. The community also agreed on the following rules to protect habitat in their entire marine area. 1. No clearing of mangroves. 2. No dynamite fishing. 3. No anchoring on coral. 4. No nighttime spearfishing of sleeping fish. 5. No sand mining. 6. No catching camouflage grouper and blue spine unicorn fish smaller than 15 inches. 7. No catching of humphead parrotfish and Napoleon wrasse. The no-take zone and rules put in place by this community were very effective, resulting in more fish and greater catches within a couple of years. To help with food and income as the fish population was rebuilding, the community also put fish aggregation devices just outside of the reef to attract deep water fishes like mahi-mahi and tuna. They also began growing pigs for other sources of food, and they started a clam farm to provide additional income. This way, the community continued to have good sources of food and income while implementing marine management, so they can continue traditional ways of living. Just like this example, your community can also take a combination of actions to make sure you have plenty of fish now and into the future.
Now that you've watched the marine resources video, it's time to start planning. In this section, you will discuss the condition of your marine resources. You will discuss any changes you have observed over the years. You will identify any problems that may have caused your marine resources to decline. Finally, you will choose actions to address these problems. To do this, complete the marine resources section of your workbook. If you don't have a workbook, use the questions at the end of this video to guide your discussions.